Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the MetaCafe for your daily astrology, human design, gene keys, and whatever else it is that we decide to talk about. Metaphysical and or regular, doesn't really matter, right? We gather together in the morning to chat about all things mystical. I like that word, mystical and magical, my two favorite words. So I'm with you this morning unexpectedly, as I had intended to be down at the hospital with my grandson while he has his surgery. But I was not able to make that happen. So it's all good because we have these telephones that magically keep us connected through all kinds of apps that we can almost feel like we're right there in the room. So I will be kept abreast of what's going on with my grandson, and I have full faith in the doctors and in the healing power that he himself has. So uh, I get to be with you this morning, and we get to finish up the chat that we began around wisdom, and that, or the resourcefulness. Yesterday is the word we were working with. Today we'll work with the word wisdom. And I got to tell you, that one gives me pause. As I was working with this gene key, I realized there's a lot more contemplation that I think I need to work with and go through, as some of these things, these concepts, which I can intuit are correct, or I can intuit the rightness, the feeling that there's a rightness to it. But I also am in rebellion to it. And maybe as we go along, you'll see what I'm talking about, because you yourself may go, oh, not sure about that one. But anyway, we will dive right into it, right? Because if we don't dive into it, then we are in fear of it and we are pushing it away, making it stronger, and really not living out the highest expression of who it is we're here to be. So we will dive in then. Let's see who's with us this morning. Good morning, Suzanne. Beautiful morning to you too. Good morning, Michelle Brooks. Good morning, Michelle Gay. It's good to see you ladies out there. And hopefully everybody got the message that I was going to be here after all. And if not, there's always the recording. And anyway, so let's take a look at what's going on today from an astrological standpoint first, and then we'll dive into the other information. Today, there is the sun moving into Virgo. Woohoo! We finally reduced the load in Leo by the sun moving on into Virgo. That happens at 9:09 p.m. this evening. So we still have the rest of this day with the sun in Leo. And then we have this fundamental shift that occurs in the focus energy of the sun. It puts much more focus then for us in the energies of Virgo, which are practical, down to earth, sort of nature goddess energies. Maybe some of you remember years past the commercial on television, where Mother Nature, it was a margarine commercial, I think. Yeah, it was a margarine commercial. And she would say, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature, because there was margarine that tasted like butter and blah, blah, blah. So it's not about the butter or the margarine. It's about the goddess embodying the ideals of purity and of the practical use of everything. And it goes back to the, sort of the more nature religion days where we lived in balance and harmony with that of nature. This is the time when the harvest will come in. This is the time where we put up the stalks from the harvest to feed ourselves throughout the winter. So there's a lot of really juicy energies that we can think of that are included in Virgo in doing the work, right? In doing, I always like to think of Virgo as the energy where from in Leo, we have all of the ideas and the inspiration and the creative juices get flowing. But if you don't express them in the world, then it's all for naught. So Virgo gives us the energy to put that idea and creativity to good use, right? To put it out there in a way that it's useful both for the people you're here to serve, but also as a way to serve yourself. And that is not a bad thing, by the way. Feeding yourself first is not a bad thing. So we learn a lot of different lessons in Virgo than we learn when we're talking about Leo. Just as valid, just as wonderful, but totally different. Neighboring signs like that, by the way, usually resonate in a completely different way. So, for example, where Leo is really service to the self and it's very egocentric, which is not a bad thing. So, if you're a Leo out there, and I know there's some of you out there, do not take that wrong, because in Leo, we all have Leo somewhere in our chart. And where Leo is in our chart is where we have to learn to be more self serving, to really put forth our selves in the world. When we get to Virgo, the energy shifts, the focus shifts to service. How do I serve the whole? Right. And so out of the individuation of Leo and the recognition of who I am in the midst of all that is, comes my need to serve. And how I serve is really truly based in what it is that I came here to do. What is my soul mission? What is my purpose? What are my gifts and my talents, right? I'm sharing of my gifts and talents, and therein I am fulfilling my purpose. That's a tricky one, don't you think? Because so many times people come to me and they want a reading because they want to know what their purpose is. What are they here to do? And the real simple answer is you're here to serve by giving of your gifts and talents in whatever way that means, right? Sometimes I think people get life purpose mixed up with the idea of vocation. And vocation or career choice or professional path is not necessarily your life purpose, right? Your life purpose could be to be a mother, to a nurturer to all the people you meet. That might be your life purpose. And that can play out in the office, that can play out in your home, that can play out in your neighborhood, in your church, in your wherever, your community. So purpose is not necessarily your vocation, but how it is that you are sharing and serving from your gifts and your talents. Virgo is the sign that rules the sixth house in your regular astrology chart. The sixth house is the house of work, service, and health, the health of the physical body. So there's also that physical connection. In serving the world, you've got to come from a place of empowered body, right? A sense that your body is willing and able to serve. And that means making sure that you're in an environment that supports your being able to serve. That means sometimes you may have to change the environment that you're in to be around the people that are your peeps, right? The people that you're here to serve. Like-minded people. So you may have to remove yourself at times from certain environments to be able to embrace the environment that has the people that you're here to serve. And that is where our reluctance comes in. That's where some of the work that we're doing right now and looking at Venus, which aligns us with our values and is also taking us on a trip through fear during these next couple of months, so that we can really be clear about what it is that we're here to do. Also today, then, the sun is in a trine, an ease and flow of energy with the planet Uranus in Taurus and the planet Saturn in Capricorn. This is still a building connection because the sun is still really right now at 29 degrees of Leo. So we're building this connection to change and to kind of revolutionize our lives, and also to rebuild or regenerate, or what's another word we could look, establish a foundation or the roots of what it is that we want to do next. All of that over the next couple of days is still crystallizing because both Saturn and Uranus are at 2 degrees of their signs, and the sun is still at 29 degrees of the sign previous. So we still have another couple of days for this energy to manifest and to build. The moon today is still in Capricorn, so we have, some real. If you look at, let me see if I can show it to you. If you look at our little grid here that tells us what the elements are that are primary in our world, you see this line right here. There's a lot of energy in Earth, and the second one would be energy in fire. So we have Earth and fire. Earth and fire sounds like wildfires and sounds like volcanoes, doesn't it? And also that primary earth energy, earthquakes. There have been several big earthquakes over the last few days. It is just an outpicturing of what is also going on within us as we ground ourselves more fully into who it is that we're here to be. It's like I was saying last night on the radio show that I was on, it's as without, so within, and as above, so below, meaning that the outer world is always a picturing of what's going on within, and the stars and the planets above are always a picture of what's going on here on the earth. Or here in the solar system. Even if we were living on the planet Venus, right, it would still be the same motif. Anyway, so the moon today then puts herself in a square to Venus. That may be a little bit of pressure on our relationships. It may be that we're forced to see things that are out of balance even and have to try to bring them back into some form of harmony. Or we might have to be able to see that there is an inherent harmony in the way things are working out. Even if it feels a little bit off kilter to us, like maybe your relationships aren't moving in the direction you thought they should, but there is a profound harmony in the acceptance of the way things are. And at the same time, the moon is in a sextile to Neptune. So I don't know that we talk about this very much, but Neptune and Venus are very much about love and the dynamics of relationship. Let's see that Venus is more of the earthly experience, the interpersonal, if you will, experience of love, where Neptune takes us to the more higher kind of love, what we might call unconditional love. So they're really just higher principles of one another. And often then what we find is when Venus and Neptune are sort of, being affected at the same time by a planet, this time the moon, that we are dealing with how is it that what is our expectation of the people that we have in our relationships? Is the expectation that they have to be a certain way, which then, if that is the case, takes us out of true love, which is unconditional. And we grapple with this as human beings, right? Because, I even think back to the days when I was first getting involved with my husband, and how I thought in some ways there were things I really liked about him, and then there were other things that I would like to change about him. And right there, you put yourself into conditional love, because you're saying, I don't accept you in your fullness. I accept you when you behave in this one certain way. And that is, of course, a fallacy, and it is taking us directly out of relationships. The real purpose of relationships is to express and experience unconditional love. You guys got to think about that for a little bit, because how many times do we have expectations about how people should behave? And how they should be. Now, does that mean you have to stick with a relationship that's not positive and uplifting? No, that isn't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the total and radical acceptance that love says that person is okay just the way they are. It doesn't mean that I need to be with that person. I may be able to just move on, separate myself from that energy or remove myself from that energy. But that part of me that removes itself recognizes that what I'm doing is a conscious choice and not a conviction of how that person is behaving. I hope that helps distinguish the difference. I think it's difficult. I think it's really difficult for us because we're still human and we still have this idea of how to victimize, how to become the victim. And that when we see other people behaving in a way that isn't positive, think of our president, their dear president, Dolt 45, as Mimi is now calling him, and how, we could become the victim of all the energy that he puts out, or we can sit back and just throw unconditional love out there into the field and just understand that he's, I would love to see what his EQ is. What was his emotional development from age 7 to 14? What was going on there in his emotional development that he has to throw tirades to get attention, or that he has to deflect and deceive and do all of these things. In a way, when I look at it that way, I can have complete and utter compassion for someone whose upbringing put him in such a position. And then when I say that, that sounds a little bit arrogant, doesn't it? That's totally, see, again, we come face to face with some of these more human qualities. So anyway, those are sort of the things in the background today. We're also the moon sextiling Jupiter, and Jupiter's in Scorpio. So thus a deeper dive into those questions, right? And into those places that we don't necessarily like to look at, but the potential is there for us to really go there, to really go into the deep. Let's see what else is happening here. Pluto, the moon is conjunct Pluto. Is that true? Yes, it is. The moon will be is just now passing Pluto. So moon Pluto conjunction, very empowering. Very much. I really like the moon conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. It gives a voice to our goals and to our aspirations, our ability to focus in on the things that empower us. Great energy for that for today. There is a little bit of a scritchy energy between Venus and Neptune, however. So as we were just talking about Venus and Neptune being the higher octave of Venus, I wanted to take a look really quickly at what's going on with both Venus and Neptune in human design. So as of today, Venus moves out of the gate 48, which we will have to finish our talk about that gate today. And then we'll, launch tomorrow into gate 57. But literally, Venus has now moved into the gate of intuition. The shadow of gate 57 for Venus is unease. Unease, that vague feeling of something's not right, but I can't really put my finger on it. And that is the shadow of this gate. The gift is intuition. And the highest expression, the Siddhi of gate 57, is clarity. So clarity in the highest, intuition is the gift, and this vague sense of unease that personifies the lower expression, the shadow expression, or the fear expression in this gate. Now, you couple that Venus being at that gate today with what's going on with Neptune. Neptune's been sitting up at gate 63, which is in the head. Let me get my model out here. My model of human design. Gate 57 down here on the spleen, the center for time, intuition, health, and survival. Gate 57 right there, again, leads up to the throat. It leads to the soul, and it leads over to the sacral. So gate 57 has a lot of connections in our human design. And then gate 63, Neptune is sitting up here, up in the head center. Now, gate 63 is the gate of doubt and suspicion. Doubt and suspicion. This is why we say don't make decisions from your head, because on one end you have doubt and suspicion. The middle one is awe and wonderment, and confusion is at the other gate. So not places where we want to make decisions in our lives, right? But gate 63, doubt and suspicion, has its purpose, and that is to really question the motivations that you have in following a certain line of beliefs, for becoming inspired by something that may see you take action on something that isn't correct for you. Unfortunately, we turn that energy often inward on ourselves in a negative way, and we call it self-doubt. We begin to doubt ourselves. We begin to doubt our purpose. We doubt our skills. We doubt our ability to live a prosperous life. In the gate 48, if Venus yesterday was at the gate 48, then it really could be our doubting our adequacy to do the things that we do, or to have the things that we love. So these two planets, one elevating us to unconditional love, the other one causing us to really evaluate love of ourselves here on the planet. And so these two are in an inconjunct. An inconjunct is also called a quincunx, which we were talking about yesterday, a difficult aspect that causes us to have to adjust ourselves, adjust our energy, to perhaps sacrifice something, an old belief, a grievance, a relationship, a way of living, in order to become more fully aligned with the truth of who we are. Interesting energies, right? Causing us so there's that vague sense in the background of things not being right, but without the real ability for us to put our finger on it and say, oh, that's it. So it does require contemplation. So in a way, today becomes a bit of a contemplation about some of these things that are going on. Let's see, is there any comments coming through here? Everybody's quiet. Deep. Are we all deep in contemplation today, I think? All right. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them there in the chat. Tina says, gate 57, my personality Uranus sits there. Absolutely interesting, don't you think? Because Uranus does things surprisingly. And it means that your intuition at times is on and off and up and down. And that can be a little disconcerting as well. I can't remember, Tina, if you have a defined spleen or is your spleen open? Because you could experience this in a different way depending on whether that spleen is defined or not. If your spleen is defined, gate 57 with Uranus there can cause you some disconcertion because you're never sure if your intuition is right or wrong. And it can cause you to hesitate in taking action. Because, for example, let's say you had a real intuitive hit to take job over here, and you do that. And then for whatever reason, it doesn't work out right, or it doesn't work out right according to your mind, even though the experience is absolutely exactly what you need in that moment, you may learn to have a vague sense of distrust around your intuition. If you have a totally open spleen, then there's already a sense of intuition not always being what you expect it. Some people are clairvoyant, some are clairaudient, some are you name the clairs, right? Clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient. There's like 5 different clairs. Someone who has an open spleen is like all of them and none of them, right? And you can't always trust your intuition on an open spleen because it isn't your authority, right? Your authority, if you have an open spleen, it is definitely not your authority. So if you have a defined spleen, it possibly is your authority, depending on the rest of your human design. Tina's telling us hers is defined, totally splenic, right? So in Tina's chart with a defined spleen, Uranus here can make upsets as you are inclined to follow your intuition, but sometimes that gets clouded by other things in the mind. And then one of two things can happen. One, you find later, dang it, I should have listened to my intuition and gone that direction. Or you do listen to your intuition, but the experience isn't what you thought it would be, even though it may be the right and perfect experience for you. And then again, it causes you to question your intuition. So Uranus is really a rebel here, and it is sort of the one planet that can create this sort of distrust in your intuition. The most I can tell you is to follow your instincts and follow your intuition, even if it is surprising that the results might not be what you expected, because there must be something else there, right? Something else revolutionary that you haven't found yet. Her design Uranus is at 48. So she's this stuff. So her design Uranus is at gate 48, the shadow of which we've been talking about is inadequacy, the gift of resourcefulness, meaning that when you follow your intuition, you really will find that you have the right tools. You have everything you need in that moment. And on the other end, then her soul side or the life purpose side must be in gate 57, where a part of your life purpose then is that the red column. Part of your life purpose is learning to fully trust and to use your intuition. So powerful, powerful stuff. And here we get to live astrology, right? This is why I love doing the show, because we can live this moment. Because lots of you might have, at least 50% of you probably have a defined spleen. And the other 50% of you, like me, have it open, where, things are coming in and out and not, you're not always aware of what it is that's triggering you. A defined spleen is definitely defined to experience intuition, to listen to that inner voice when it speaks, to listen to that instinctual voice within. Okay, so let's finish our conversation on gate 48. There's a couple of things I left you with yesterday, and I thought, oh my God, why did I leave them with this? In a discussion that we started about prosperity versus wealth. And I'm sure I might have triggered a couple of people out there, because my thing was that we all have all that we need in this moment, right? We are all prosperous. We are all designed to be prosperous, because prosperity requires just a little more than enough, right? So I'm going to use a refrigerator or cupboards as an example. So I know because I have a Cancer rising sign, and some of you, Michelle, I know you have a Cancer rising sign, and a couple others of you out there, like Suzanne, you are a Cancer, and that energy in Cancer likes to have the full pantry, right? I like to know there's enough. I like to know there's enough money in the bank. I like to know that my cupboard's full, my refrigerator's full. That creates a sense of security for me. But that can also tend to create hoarding, right? Or stockpiling. And that takes us into the more negative aspects of this energy at gate of prosperity, where prosperity becomes wealth, where we begin to equate how much we have with the concept of prosperity. So, like right now, I have a refrigerator that's about half empty. Today's payday, so I haven't been to the refrigerator. I haven't been to the grocery store. But I'm not suffering from a lack of anything to eat. Certainly, there are things in there. And I can be comfortable knowing that I have a little more than enough right now. Right? So, prosperity requires just a little more than enough. And we always receive the exact support that we need when we need it without the need to stockpile. Right? I hope people are understanding that. Now, wealth, on the other hand, is a lot more than enough, probably more than you could ever use in this lifetime. And all it does is sit there and give you a false sense of security. And I can tell you from experience in my days of wanting to stockpile food that, and I would stockpile things like lettuce and tomatoes and onions and carrots and celery, and I could never use it all. And then it goes bad because disuse of having an overage or a stockpile of something doesn't ensure that you can use it. Think of all the billionaires out there sitting on all this money, and what are they using it for? Now, I know there are some people that are out there and they do good things with their money, but really when is having enough money too much money? Right? When is being a billionaire, what is the point? Are they any happier than you or I with our, regular incomes? Chances are not. Take a look at our president right now here in this country. He's a very wealthy man. Is he any happier being the leader of the free world than he was when he was just regular JQ citizen? And have his billions or millions of dollars made him any happier, any more adjusted? That stockpile of funds isn't making him happier than what you or I are, right? So wealth then becomes something that's formed from the need for security, from an illusion that is rooted in the shadow frequency of inadequacy. And I told you this was going to be an interesting day, right? Because these are some of our cherished beliefs. I mean, I have a friend right now who's out there developing a millionaire program for women. And I'm not saying that what she's doing is not right. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying, where is that coming from? And when we start to purify our motives here, when we can really look at, well, what is it that I'm doing this for? Is it because this is my real life calling and my real purpose, in which case everything I need is going to be there anyway? Or is it coming from a fear from not having had enough, or what I perceived as not having had enough? And these are questions that we all have to, that we all grapple with for ourselves as we are moving to resourcefulness, right? Resourcefulness. Likewise, resourcefulness always ensures that the right people are there to receive your gifts and your talents, because that's another concern we have sometimes. We link the idea of prosperity to the number of clients that we have, the number of accounts that we have, the number of sales we make, the number of widgets we make in a day. It's bottom line numbers, production, right? And then we might go a day or two or three or a week without a customer, and we begin to worry, right? We begin to worry that we're not going to have enough. But resourcefulness also ensures that the right people will show up with the right gifts or with the right needs that you can fulfill with your gifts, your services, so that your job is mainly to sit back and wait for the right people to come along for you to serve the whole of humanity. Nobody's screaming at me. Tina saying, this is so powerful. Suzanne saying, nope. My sister makes 6 figures and she's not happy. Cindy says, I did the same, Suzanne. I was homeless as well for 3 years, and it really created a fear of ever having to go through that again. I became a food hoarder for a couple of years after being homeless and not having much food. So if I don't have a full fridge, I have anxiety. Oh, yeah. You know what you guys may not know? I was homeless not very long ago, right? Maybe 2008, 2007. Right? Where, it was, whoa, what has happened here? Right? It's ridiculous to think of it. And then I begin, this process of collecting things. So I'm never going to be, like that again. Right? Then I got really disturbed because remember, I moved a year ago and I had been in that home that I was in for 9 years. So it was very disturbing to me to come out of the 2007, 2008 homeless era and find a home and find that foundation and then have to be moving. It was very disturbing for me. And I went through, maybe 8 months worth of hell, right? And self-created as I kept digging into that fear, that memory of what it was like. And of course, then that's a life half lived. Right? Because then I was always worried I wasn't out there doing what I love, or I was, but only half-heartedly, because I really was feeling like, dang, I need to make more money. I really got myself into a place of unhappiness, almost even depression over the whole idea of having to keep producing and keep doing, because if not, I was going to be homeless again, or I was going to have that kind of insecurity. It's terrible, right? It's a terrible way to live your life. And then we look outside of us and we see people who have enough. Right? Who have enough, but they're no happier than we are. What does that mean? Right? What does that mean? I'm sorry, I'm looking over at my phone because I'm getting messages from my daughter about what's going on with my grandson. So anyway, for all of us at this point, then here's the time. Here's our line in the sand. Where are we going to live a life marginalized by our fears? Or are we going to let them go and just dive into the wholeness of who we are? Resourcefulness has its counterpart also out in the energy systems, in the concept of explosion versus implosion. Let me explain. The explosion is the outer world expression, the more masculine energy out there in the world. So for example, think about, our world gives us these great opportunities, these great visuals. Think about the combustion engine. Combustion engine radicalized our world, changed it fundamentally forever. And it was caused by an explosion, right? A piston firing, creating a spark that creates an explosion and starts the engine. And this continues on. And of course, that's a very minimal expression of how an engine works, but that's combustion, and combustion is an explosive function. And it creates and has created an energy crisis, right? As resources dwindle. So resourcefulness in energy then is really much more about implosion, the inner world focus, more feminine energy that's receptive. The well, right? Remember yesterday we talked about the well and being able to go deep within. And when we go within, when we go to an implosion, we come back with the answers and the solutions that we need. We unlock energy without the masculine energy of ignition when we do that. Ignition means we're looking for something outward to create that spark, but the spark is really within you. And eventually in the energy world, this will, as we become more adept at looking within, it will create more and more of the ability for us to find free energy out there. And there have already been people out there in the world. Who was it yesterday I was talking to that says their birthday is the same day as Nikolai Tesla? I think it was a guy on the radio show last night. And I thought it was interesting to bring up Nikola Tesla in this because he already had the breakthrough, right? He already knew and had discovered the secret of free energy, but it got squelched. Got squelched. So we have to go back to this, right? We're going to see this resourcefulness playing out in the world in how we deal with the energy crisis that we find ourselves in. And wisdom. Let's move to the Siddhi of the gate 48. Wisdom. I'm going to give you a definition for wisdom. And herein is where we're going to start arriving at some, issues perhaps. Inner wisdom is defined as inner knowledge that allows you to see beyond normal awareness. And it arrives through not knowing. Let me say that again. Wisdom is inner knowledge that allows you to see beyond normal awareness and arrives through not knowing. Knowing takes great effort, right? As we've seen through the shadow, whereas not knowing is already deep inside of you. So when we go inside, it feels more passive, right? Because we're used to going to a book for answers, going online for answers, going to classes, going to get more education. We look outside of ourselves, as we see in the shadow of gate 48, for knowledge that fills the void of not knowing within us. Where what we see here is the solution is really about not knowing and going within. Wisdom is literally unsafe and unsecure. Wisdom is unsafe and unsecure. Unsecure versus insecure. Why? In insecurity, we are kidnapped or hijacked by our fear. And then we're taken on a ride through the illusion where we can somehow outside of us find the answers. That's insecure, fear-based. Unsecure gives us a different realm to play in. It is our embracing our urge to escape that fear and to realize that the main fear that we are all afraid of is dying, death. So this is one that caused me pause. So every fear leads us to the fear, the main fear that we have of dying. So when we're afraid that our pantry is not full, what are you really afraid of? Not having enough food, becoming malnourished, having your health go down, and eventually dying. So underneath all of the fears is a fear that we won't survive. This blew my mind because it reveals fear to be sort of false because we know we're going to die. We come to the planet knowing that we're going to die. We know this, but we spend a lot of our time and our energy and our money avoiding death. So a part of this is to understand and release yourself to taking all those questions and returning them back to the infinite, back to within, right? Suzanne says, not being able to feed my daughter is my fear, right? That she won't survive. That's gate 50, by the way, on the spleen. We haven't gotten there yet, but gate 50 on the spleen is the fear of failing in your responsibility to your family or to your community or to your tribe. It's tribal energy. So Suzanne says, there's no death, there is only transition from one state to another, right? So I'm going to give you a water metaphor, and this comes directly from the Gene Keys book. So if you look this up, it's on, page 376 or so, 377, no, 375 and 376 in the Gene Keys book, where water becomes our metaphor for wisdom, where it is empty yet full, weak yet strong, resistant yet yielding. It shapes itself to the vessel it's held in, and when the vessel has gone, it dissipates yet lives on. And the bottom line is you are wise because you do not know you are wise. I love this. You are powerful because you do not care about power. You are fearless because you do not really exist. Big one there. You are fearless because you do not really exist. That takes us really deep. And here's where I started having the problem, needing to contemplate more in order to be able to bring this to you, because I've studied the Course in Miracles. And in the Course of Miracles, what you learn is that everything that is in our realm, this cup, your pen, your paper, your glasses, your body, are all given meaning by you. If I were to show this to an alien from another planet, they would make of this whatever it is that they would make of this, right? I would, if I didn't tell them this was a highlighter pen, a pink highlighter, and you write with it or you highlight text with it, they would have no idea what this is. And they might think it was a way to draw on your face, or maybe they would think it was a weapon. Who knows, right? Because the reality here is that we give meaning to everything in our world, in our physical world. Good morning, Kristen. And who else have I missed out here? Cindy, good morning to you. Sorry, got the hiccups. And Gina Rose Crowley, good morning to you as well. Tesla did not get his credit, that is for sure. But he did show us, because in his records, there is the truth that free energy does exist. So let's see. Tina says, mic drop. I lost my speakers. I need to reload. Suzanne, we got yours. Transition, I mean, should we not be afraid of death? Well, I guess the question is there anything to really fear at all? Right? If you don't really exist, do you really need fear? And that takes me back to my Course in Miracles conversation here. Sorry, I got sidetracked for a moment. Because in the very beginning of the Course in Miracles, there is this basic tenet, if you will, that the Course in Miracles, this tome, says this: nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So if you contemplate that, and we ask the question about being fearless because we do not really exist, the real part of you isn't in the physical. I mean, your physical embodiment of something much bigger, much wiser, much more depth to it than what we know. And you, the observer you, who is that? Who is that? What is that? You are pure consciousness. You happen to be inhabiting a human body, a physical body, to be able to explore and find out the truths, right, of the physical world. That doesn't mean you don't enjoy living in your body. It doesn't mean you don't do things to support your physical body. But if you're doing it from a place of fear, you're coming from a false place. If you're doing it because it allows your vessel to continue living here, to experience and share your gifts and your talents, and to serve humanity, serve the evolving consciousness on this planet, totally different place than doing it from, I'm afraid I'm going to die. Sounds like the Four Agreements. Yeah, I think the Four Agreements, his wisdom is kind of runs parallel to the wisdom through the Course of Miracles, through a lot of the different sacred texts. We speak of this, right? So you're fearless because you do not really exist. So what we find is wisdom is the ability to jump into the void, to be okay with not knowing, to be empty yet full, weak yet strong, and resistant yet yielding, to be the paradox, to be the conundrum, to be so much more than you think you could be. So let's see, what kind of thoughts are we getting here? Tina says, if we do not fear death, does that help us overcome all the other fears? Yeah. And is it what did I say here? Um, that embracing your urge to escape fear, to realize your fear of death and dying, and surrendering all of those questions back to the infinite. Who am I? What am I? What am I here to do? When am I going to die? Creating unsecurity instead of insecurity. Insecurity is when you're hijacked by those fears, when you're kidnapped by that fear and taken for a ride through the ever search for answers to that, the ever search for more energy, for more money, for more food in your refrigerator, for more connection to your relationships, for excuses for never doing what you're really here to do. Wow, a large 6.2 earthquake just struck off the coast of Oregon. Did any of you people in Oregon that or Wash? I didn't feel anything, but the dogs were all barking a few minutes ago. Interesting. So hopefully, let's just give some peace to the earth, and she's a representation of all of the changes going on within us. And let's just pray that that earthquake was far enough off the coast that it didn't damage any, body. Earthquakes are scary. It's a reality that we live with. And when we have this much earth energy in astrology, that earthquakes are going to be a part of the landscape. And as are volcanoes and other physical manifestations of earth on the planet. So, what do you all think of this? Let's say I was going through this. If we do not fear death, does that help us overcome all the other fears? I would say that, Tina, the fear of death is the one that underlies them all. And addressing that could be the key that unlocks the reason why you have all of the other fears, right? Fear is false evidence appearing real. Now, think about that for a minute, because I have a mortal fear of earthquakes, and here, this message pops up, and I'm always grateful when I'm living a day without an earthquake, or when it hasn't been a part of my experience. I grew up in Southern California and had major earthquakes that happened twice, in my life living down there, and created this mortal terror of earthquakes. And now I'm looking at one right off the coast of Oregon, and I'm in Washington. Well, when's it my turn? And so if I address that fear, what I see is my fear is literally about dying in the earthquake, having something fall on me, having the earth open up in front of me, having my life upended, which creates insecurity, which then creates the fear of dying. And so you could say that almost every fear literally takes us. I'm also afraid of heights. When I am hiking, if I get to a trail and I'm on an edge, or I have to, look down at way down below me, I am in mortal fear of the height, right? That I'm going to fall. So again, why would I be worried about that? Well, again, it goes to my fear of dying. Even though if you had asked me, I would tell you I don't have a fear of dying. But my body suggests otherwise, which is kind of ironic, don't you think? So then Suzanne says, I've always been afraid of death because I don't want to leave my kids. But since I became an ordained minister and faced funerals, it changed the way I look at death. Yeah, death is just a part of life, right? Good morning. Oh, I already said that. Good morning, Kristen. Suzanne says, we are preconditioned to know what things are from birth. There's something like that. Yep. And Tina, what is that? Is it a book? I need it. Yes, The Four Agreements by Jose Arguelles, I think it is. Or is it Alberto Villoldo? The Four Agreements. And Scary April. Good morning, April. Howdy, everyone. Ginger, good morning. It's good to see you out there this morning. So I'm leaving you with this thought about this void. Going into this void, this water metaphor that says, it's empty yet full, that, weak yet strong. And the water is the metaphor for wisdom, of which you are a part of. And when the vessel has gone, It dissipates yet lives on, right? Getting that book, Suzanne says. Awesome. All right, everybody. I think I am done for today. Tomorrow, we're going to take on the gate 57 and look at the fear of unease, the gift of intuition, and the Siddhi of clarity as Venus prepares her transit through that particular part or that gate. And I think we'll also begin looking at the energy of the full moon. It will be at 3 degrees of Pisces. So if you know your own chart, you'll know that the moon will be in Pisces and the sun in Virgo, opposing one another, i.e., the full moon. And what will that bring for us? What can we expect? What's that degree mean? And what are the not the houses, the gates that the sun and moon are going to be in? I find interesting, actually, because the sun is moving into the gate 59, which is on the sacral. It is the gate of sexuality. It is the gate of the masculine energy of creativity. So it is the masculine expression of creative energy, reproduction, fertility, etc. But the earth and the moon will both be at the gate 55, which is the gate of abundance. So abundance and fertility. It kind of speaks to us about our going into that well, I think. Going into that well, going into the deep. So for today, that's it. Everyone take care. Have a wonderful day. And I'll see you all tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock right here. And much love to all of you. Bye for now.